What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jay Rich, back for another episode of Across the Pod with my main man, Tom. Tom, we're on to game week 7. This is the week we told people it's time to bring in those Arsenal assets. Of course, we talked about it heading into last week and why we may bring in a Gyökeres, bring in a Saka, and of course, Gabriel and Raya, who were great this week against, of course, our Newcastle Magpies. But how are you doing, my friend? And what are you looking forward to for game week 7?
I'm good. We're here. We're at the promised land, the fixture swing, the weeks of preparation of wildcards to finally come to this point, and I'm excited to talk about it. I think there's not that many players which, if you've already wildcarded, you need to really consider, and people are probably rolling, but I think we can kind of talk through, where our focus is and think about the next few weeks going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, here you have pulled up for us the top transferred players at each position, and I see you have a check and an X, I'm assuming, for the players that you agree with or disagree with. So where do you want to start with this chart?
Let's start with the goalkeepers because I think it's quite an easy one. I think most people on Wildcard were thinking between Raya and Donnarumma. For me, Donnarumma was like touch and go, but I think Raya is just a safer bet, and I still think Raya is the best goalkeeper to own in all of FPL. Donnarumma, it looks like Man City still can't keep a clean sheet.
Nope.
In the Champions League, conceded 2 goals to Monaco. I just think Man City's probably just an avoid for like the same price, not really worth it. The Sunderland goalkeeper, loads of people transferring him in. I do kind of understand why, because that 4.5 million price point is a difficult price point, but I would just because you can get Kelleher, you can get other ones. Basically anyone like 5 and above. You want like Nick Pope, I think, is the best at 5 million. I think Raya is the best at 5.5 and above. I don't understand paying 4.5 for a Sunderland goalkeeper when you can just get Dubravka for 4 million who plays and save 0.5 million. And I think Burnley have a better, I know they're doing worse, but Sunderland have had easier fixtures so far. And I think Dubravka is a better keeper. So for me, don't understand going with the Sunderland goalkeeper. But Alderete there is a tick because at 4.1 million, it's just, your 4th, 5th defender that you can rotate. It's been playing really well. I understand it at 4 million. Yeah. Do you kind of agree on the goalkeeper front or differently?
So I do agree with Raya, and I don't know if you saw the tweet, and I wish I could pull it up. It was just one I saw in passing. And the reason why people may be bringing in the Sunderland goalkeeper is that if you have him and Nick Pope, for the rest of the season, they play a home game every single game week, and you can just kind of rotate depending on who's playing at home. Do I agree with that? Absolutely not. Like, I would rather just have Dubravka for 4 million, start him every single week, and whatever you get is what you get, because I've owned Cells all year, and Dubravka for 6 game weeks outscored Cells every single week, other than this week when he finally got 3 points and Dubravka only got 1 or whatever it was. So Raya is definitely the keeper to own, especially over Donnarumma. Man City can't keep a clean sheet. Completely agree with you there. Love everything for the defense. Although, do you want to defend Tarkowski? Didn't get DefCon points this week, Tom. What happened?
Yeah, I don't know. My DefCon monster didn't perform, but it's because everyone else, every man and their dog, finally brought him in that they cursed him. But I think he'll be back to, top form. Crystal Palace at home. It's tough for a clean sheet, but Everton are really good at home. And, I think you'll just get 4 points. And I think it's fine to earn Tarkowski, and I would definitely bring him in if you don't have him. Gabriel's easy. Question over his shoulder injury, so a little bit on the... I mean, people saying he's absolutely fine, and people just sensationalize it on FPL Twitter, as we know. So I think he'll be fine. I imagine he'll start. I think he's more nailed than Timber. I'd like to get your views on Timber or Calafiori. Feels like they played a lot of minutes, both in Premier League, League Cups, and in Champions League. So for me, I feel like Timber and Calafiori are probably more of a rotation risk. So for me, I just think Gabriel's more nailed.
Yeah, so looking at Timber right now, again, no real rotation risk as far as his Premier League minutes go. Calafiori, I think, is probably the bigger rotation risk in my opinion, but even still, they both played 60 every single game. Timber obviously missed the first game, and after that, he's been great. I think if I was picking one, though, I'd probably go Timber. I saw one of my buddies actually sent me his team, and he had Calafiori in the team, and I was like, I feel like Timber's just a better bet, a little bit more expensive, 5.8 versus 5.7, but I'd still rather pay up for Gabriel every single time. He's going to play 90 almost every time. He obviously scored just this past week as well and played very, very well against Newcastle, so it's got to be Gabriel going forward regardless of the price.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other ones to mention, Senesi, we've talked about it since game week 1, ability for goals, assists,
You're very
good defense. Another good home fixture. So I think Finesse at 4.7 is very undervalued. Probably like a 5.5 million
Well, he
defender.
is 4.9 now. He may be 4.7 on your
4.9.
team, but he is
Right.
4.9 now.
4.9. Okay, I still think it's worth that. I still think he's a similar,
He
offers
is, yeah.
exactly the same as Tarkowski, but with the attacking potential. So I'd argue he's even probably up there and better than a Tarkowski who people are paying 5.5 million for. The only one that I didn't like on that back line that of people transferring in is Guehi, because people
Really?
are
Okay.
transferring him in for assists or goals. But his expected goals and assists, like his output in previous seasons and going forward, he's just not going to maintain that. And for 4.8 million, you can spend zero point 0.2 more and get Lacroix in the same defense. So you're getting the same clean sheet output, but he's just get Lacroix guaranteed 2 points a game. He's only missed DefCon in one game this season. So it feels like now that Guehi at 4.5, I think it was a great option. Now he's 4.8. I'd just much rather pay 0.2 and get Lacroix.
Yeah, so that's where it is interesting, right? So in terms of Gay, he's returned in 4 straight game weeks. He has a goal and 2 assists in the game weeks. The other one was the clean sheet against Sunderland. But as you mentioned, the expected goal involvement is only 0.5 for the entire season. So it's clearly coming kind of luckily in terms of that way. And I do think I still like Palace, but would you really rather pay that much more? Because if you go up to Lacroix, he's got to be what, at least 5.5 right now, right? Or 5.4
I think it's
probably at
5.1.
worst. Let me
5.1.
check. So he is 5.1. So you're fine there, but you're fine paying that extra 0.3. I think it's close, depending on who you prefer. I'm definitely with you on I wouldn't expect the goal involvements going forward, and Lacroix is better for the DefCon points, but it's interesting. I think if you're just leading into DefCon, which we've kind of been tending to do, you probably go for Lacroix, but I can't really blame people with the way that Guehi's been playing, because he has been playing pretty well, surprisingly.
Yeah, and I think, one thing that FPL doesn't show you in terms of stats is just, I think it does actually, but is, one thing you got to consider is form. And I think getting a player on a hot streak,
For
he
sure.
could score again, he could assist again. So I do kind of get it. I
Hate
just
buying a
think for
player on a
me,
hot streak.
I think longer term, Lacroix is better. Short term, maybe Guehi. And if you need the 0.3 million for elsewhere, fair enough. As we move to midfield, some interesting picks this week. And keen to get your view on some of them. I think Enzo Fernandez, we spoke about last week. With Palmer being injured, playing in the 10 on penalties feels like it's still a really good option. I'm
Yep.
just not sure how long Palmer's injured for. And the second Palmer's back in the side, he then takes penalties and the 10 role. So Enzo doesn't feel like a long-term pick for me, but I still think he's amazing value at 6.7. Saka, I think we like him at 9.8 million, but keen to get your view on Saka. And then I think the only other one of this that I liked was Ismaïla Sarr. We liked him before he got injured. Now he's back playing in a Palace side, probably their most attacking outlet with Mateta. Seems to just score or get an assist in every game. I just think he's fantastic value at that 6.4 million mark, where people are kind of struggling with that price point.
Yeah, so we'll start with Enzo. I'm kind of okay with it. Enzo is the highest scoring midfielder on Chelsea right now. Even, Caicedo's been very good in terms of DefCon. He is on the penalties for, I believe, Palmer. When he got injured, it was 3 to 6 weeks when he came out of that game. That's what the determination was. So he should be back probably at least after international break for sure, maybe a few weeks following that. So I don't hate bringing him in. I think the price point is fine. And again, he's not going to be on pens once Palmer comes back, but even still, he's been pretty productive, and we know he will get forward because he just scored like 2 games ago, of course, and I didn't have him in my team. Doku's a player that's interesting because when you watch City, and obviously having Haaland captain every single week, I watch City a lot, and it seems like Doku is very involved. I'm always worried about the rotation risk, but I also wouldn't be shocked if he's been nailed for 60 for like the neck going forward, because he's actually has been creating a lot for that City team. And I think last year we expected a little bit more from Grealish and Savinho, and it never really happened. And Doku's a player that this season at least has stepped up and has been playing a lot and probably will continue to play going forward. Saka's fine. I think the price does seem like a lot if he's not going to be on pens, and it seems like Gyökeres, at least for what we've seen so far, will probably be on pens, and that's where his price point is difficult. But I still think there's a ton of attacking threat on this team and a ton of potential going forward. So I don't mind Saka at all. Love Sarr. We talked about him, I think, after game week 1 and even going into game week 1. And then, of course, Anthony here, you have an X beside his name. I mean, 0.4 expected goals in the last 2 games with 2 goals. It's just probably not going to happen against a strong Villa side, especially at Villa Park. Going to be very, very difficult. I don't hate it because of the price point, but I'd rather just go for someone cheaper probably.
Yeah, definitely. I think Burnley's just not really like the most prolific attack that you've ever seen. Again, but he scored like 4 goals in 6 games, so 5.7 million. You can't argue against that. Still really low owned, but people bring him in. I think you've kind of missed the boat. If
A
you've
little
had him
bit for
since the
sure.
start, then if you're one of the 2 owners that had him since the start, then fair play to you. Doku, I think again, you're right, is an interesting one. I've said no, but solely because of rotation risk. But then again, he's a 6.6 million player playing in a
Not
really
too
attacking
expensive.
side, and he's super explosive as an asset. He's the ability to get either a 1 pointer or a 20 pointer. So for me, Doku is an exciting pick, a differential. And we did say, City have great fixtures. So if you think he's going to play, I think it's kind of a no-brainer. I just probably want someone around that price point that's definitely going to play 90 minutes.
Yeah, so he's
Um,
played 76 or more minutes each of the last 3 games. He has 4 assists, and would you know he is the highest scoring midfielder on City right now, even ahead of Reinders.
that's crazy,
Or actually,
and
he's tied with
that's kind
Reinders
of
right now.
yeah. And I think that's one of the things I was going to ask you next is basically so many people have Reinders, so many people last week brought in Phil Foden. Where does Doku, if you're going to rank those 3 assets, where are you? How are you ranking those?
I think when you're factoring in price, I still am willing to roll with Reinders going forward, but I understand he's not a differential anymore, so you're not really
Yeah.
gaining the same value you were in the past, and you may want to pivot to even an Anthony, who very similar price point, but drastically different in terms of ownership if you want to start
Yeah.
climbing the ranks a little bit. Again, I think the problem for me with taking Reinders out of the team is that he's played 82 minutes or more every game. The Burnley game was the only game he's been taken out of the entire season. And so when I'm have to pay up to go and get Doku, it's going to cost me about 0.8 million, I believe, as the prices are right now, for a similar attacking threat. And as you mentioned, more rotation risk. That's where I have a bit of concerns. So I still think Reinders would be number one for me, then probably Doku, and then Foden would probably be last. Because as much as I want to
Interesting.
see Phil Foden succeed and be great, he simply hasn't shown it to me yet. And Doku's actually shown
Yeah.
he's the better attacking threat in terms of production on the field. And Foden's the one that, for whatever reason, hasn't quite scored. And I believe he did almost score, but it went off of a
Hit the
stiff
bar.
this past week too. So it's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's been very, very close multiple times. And I know that Phil Foden explosion is coming, but you're also paying 1.4 million to make that happen in your team, which is tough.
Yeah, exactly. If Esteve doesn't poke it in, and last night if it goes in off the bar in the Champions
Yeah.
League, you're kind of saying Phil Foden's gone three. He scored it in back-to-back games again. He's back. What we've been talking about, and people are probably transferring him in. So it's fine margins, but I think for an 8 million player, you're kind of right. And the one thing that I wouldn't worry if you're a Reinders owner, I don't own him, but I did at the start of the season. I kind of miss having him in my team at that really low price point where the expectation's low. But if you look
Yeah.
at his positions for City, like he's always in the box waiting for the pullback. Like it's just a matter of time before he gets 2 goals in a game and gets a 10, 15 pointer. And people
Yeah.
are mad transferring him back again. So I just think hold him and don't get too disillusioned with him. Like people are transferring out Elliott Anderson as well, is another one we can talk about. But he's now
Yeah.
5.4 million, which is crazy
It's
to me because I
crazy.
think he's so much value. Like he's getting DefCons again. He's potentially playing 10, but also playing way more aggressively and more attacking in an Ange system. So I just think Elliot Anderson's a better time to own him than ever. And at 5.4, if it's, you're struggling for a zero point 0.1, or for instance, you want Alderate at 4.1, it then helps to kind of mesh in your budget. I still think Elliot Anderson's a good pick.
Yeah, I can't believe he dropped. You talk about DefCon, 15 defensive contributions or more in each of the last 3 game weeks. He's been an absolute monster the past 3 weeks. And even going into those last 3 weeks, he was at 11 for 3 straight weeks prior. So he's been right there, averaging 13.17 the entire season. Like, I don't know why he dropped. Maybe it's because Forest just suck, and they definitely are not playing very good football right now. But I still think in terms of an asset and the value he's at is more than fair for his price point.
Yeah, definitely. And then when we come to strikers, I think we've said it for like the last 3 weeks. I think the 3 slots pick themselves. I think João Pedro, Haaland, Gyökeres. The only other strikers we can, maybe consider is the likes of people liking Mateta for a Palace look good and good fixtures. But for me, he doesn't seem super explosive ability to get more than one return in a game.
Yep.
People saying Chris Wood, I just don't think that's feasible. There's like Iger, Thiago, Strand Larson. I'd be
Yeah.
interested to get your thoughts on who you think the best like cheap striker is, like a Richarlison, a Thiago, or otherwise. And I think Gyökeres is great for the fixtures. Haaland's obviously Haaland. So I think those two are kind of fine, and I'm happy with having both those in my team, especially if Gyökeres is on penalties. The last one's, so what's the best under 6 mid? And for João Pedro, a lot of people transferring him out. He's only had one shot, I think, in the last 3 games. But then against Chelsea have played with 10 men.
2 games.
And exactly. So, what's your thoughts on João Pedro and people transferring him out as well?
Yeah, so I think the hard part with Pedro is I'm not going to say he needs Palmer, but Palmer is a great asset to João Pedro, setting him up and helping him, perform. But as you mentioned, you look to the United game, red card early on, down to 10 men, still played 90 blanks. Brighton, same thing, gets the red card, blanks. And it's just what is this team doing? But prior to that, an assist against Brentford, a goal against Fulham, and a goal and 2 assists against West Ham, weeks 2 through 4. So it's not like he hasn't been performing when the team is performing well, but the team is in a big slump right now. And I think that's the hard part. And of course, he also ended up getting a double yellow in the Champions League. Just what
that's
is he doing?
That's a good thing for FPL though, surely.
It is a good thing for FPL because he's not going to be able to play in the next Champions League fixture, right? So it's so hard because I don't want to have 2 players in my team. It's João Pedro and Semenyo. Semenyo you should have in your team because he's been great. Pedro is so highly owned that it's if he performs, you're not getting anything out of it. And if he doesn't, it just hurts your team in the end. So it's crazy.
Yeah,
and you talked about budget strikers. Not that I think that Voltemade is a great budget striker because he's still 7.1 million, but he's also scored in 2 of 3 games this season that he's played in the Prem. But he has been playing in the Champions League. He scored last night as well, right? So he's been scoring a lot of goals, and that's where, the schedule and the fixtures do open up beyond this week. Forest, Brighton, Fulham, West Ham, Brentford, nothing really crazy until the City fixture, and 2 of those 5 are at home, and 3 of them are on the road. But striker is very template right now. You have to have Gyökeres. You absolutely must have Haaland in your team. If you don't, you've got to be in last place by now. The only other player that I'm curious, honestly, of just kind of going through the list is do you have any hope for Bowen beyond this fixture? Because Bowen is a player that we both like, playing at striker, very expensive, I believe at 7.7 right now. But after the Arsenal fixture, Brentford, Leeds, Newcastle home, Burnley home, Bournemouth, Liverpool, the next 5-6 game weeks beyond this one aren't too bad for Bowen if you want a differential from João Pedro. But I wouldn't necessarily say I'm making that bet personally, but he's probably the only other player I've considered.
Yeah, well, I think this is actually one of the things I wanted to talk to you about and something that's going to be going on in my head is, what's the Nuno effect going to be like for West Ham? Is Bowen, I think he's already 2nd or 3rd. He's right up there in terms of points already.
He scored Monday too.
Yeah, and he's not even registered a big chance in the Premier League so far. So he's actually scoring from basically nothing. If you can get playing him more in a system that works well for him, I had Bowen at the start of the season. I got off him for João Pedro just when everyone else did, and he kept price dropping. He was at an awkward price point of 8 million. I think he's down to 7.8 or 7.7.
7.7.
So so exactly at a price point that's actually cheaper than João Pedro, and historically done really well for West Ham. I think gets double-digit goals and assists. This is a season he got over 15 goals. So I think he can really get that output again, and he's one of the players that tends to perform well for 6 or 7 game weeks when the fixtures are good, and then kind of drops off again. So I think it's for Bowen, for me, is always a player that you got to pick him up at the right time and own him. And I think maybe with the new manager, it might be that point, but keen to get your view on. And the only other one for West Ham is with Nuno. Think of what he did to Forest's defense. West Ham's been notoriously bad, but for a player like Diouf, who's getting, I think, 3 assists in the last 4, and could potentially start to become a clean sheet machine team, are you looking at maybe West Ham defense as well?
I don't know if I'm looking at West Ham defense quite yet because unfortunately I can't unsee what I've seen to start this season. Yeah. But it's definitely a good option with Bowen. He scored in 3 of the last 4 games he started in the Prem, and as bad as West Ham is and has how much I don't want to watch them play, he's going to score goals, and he does every single season. It was the fact that he switched from midfield to forward this year that I think kind of turned people off of him because he was a pretty good midfielder. Obviously, the bonus point for the goals definitely helps, so he's having more output there. But in a league and a season where it just feels like you only can own like 3 or 4 strikers, I think Bowen is a real differential that could actually make a difference for your team. So if you are, maybe a bit behind in your mini league, or you want to kind of make a bold move, I don't hate it because he is running hot right now. And it's not like they're playing European football. He's 90 nailed every single game. And if Nuno does turn this team around, they're going to be more than fine. And I think that Bowen can be a decent asset going forward. It's just after this game week is there's a better time with them playing Arsenal this week.
Yeah, definitely. No, I completely agree. I mean, even for me, I think Bowen's a better asset than João Pedro. I just think he's playing 90 minutes.
He's a better player.
He's a talisman. He's a better player.
On
I know. Yeah. Well, I actually think Paqueta might be on penalties. So I think if Bowen was on penalties, Bowen would be straight in my team. And that's the only thing that's kind of like, let's wait and see West Ham, how they're playing. I still think I prefer João Pedro, but then again, João Pedro is still on penalties for now. So I'm happy to wait and hold João Pedro and see. But I think Bowen's very close to that top 3 with maybe like a Mateta or otherwise. But I think you're right. Gyökeres and Haaland pick themselves. The only other player, we talked about Foden and Reijnders there and we ranked them. The only other thing that I want to get your opinion on before we finish is that man there on the left-hand side, Anthony Gordon. Not had a great start to the season. But if he's on penalties for Newcastle, scored 2 last night, and the fixtures, like you said, are turning, in a player who I think last season or season before, 10 goals, 10 assists, one of only like 5 or 6 players.
16.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. If he can get to that level of output, composure, confidence again in a side where Newcastle have kind of done some of the tough fixtures now, already played Arsenal, already played Liverpool. What's your thoughts on Anthony Gordon?
Oh man, I can't with this guy. Like, he totally fucked us over for 3 weeks by getting that red card against Arsenal. But like, he's a fine asset. The problem really is the price point. 7.4 is difficult to work with. Again, the structure that we're building, strong in the defense, pretty expensive in the forward position, and you have to make it work in your midfield. If you can't afford João Pedro, if you can't afford, who's our 7.4? Oh, it's Semenyo, of course. That's the guy I was trying to think of. It's who's what is he now? 7.8 million as Semenyo.
Crazy.
Gordon is a good option. I just don't want to own him when he's blanking like week after week after week after week. And I'm like, I just got to get him out. Like, I feel like, what is your read, Tom, here? Where it's like, you could go after Doku, who's almost $1 million cheaper. You could go even cheaper than that to a Sarr, who actually is $1 million cheaper and save some money. Like,
yep.
Where are you at when it comes to that situation? Because that's what I find so tough with Newcastle is like, we know their goal scoring output probably isn't going to be very high this season, especially with the loss of Isak. You brought up, him scoring 11 goals, 16 assists. Part of that was because Isak was on the team and scored a bunch of goals for Newcastle. And I think that's where I struggle with Gordon. He's priced like Isak is there, but he's not. And I think if you go to next season, he'd probably be a little bit cheaper to where he's more affordable. But if he's on penalties, I mean, I'm paying up $9 million for Bruno every week, and this guy can't even make a pen. So it's not a bad shout at all. It's not a bad shout at all, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the only thing for me is like rotation. I think Gordon's still the favorite left wing, but with Champions League, we're going to want to go for the cups again because we're reigning League Cup champions or Carabao Cup champions.
Damn right we are.
Yeah, damn right. So I think Gordon is still number 1, but he might be rotated in the Prem a little bit. But then again, I think he's probably, when all the teams fully fit, Eddie Howe will still pick him. And I think for a 7.4 mid on penalties in a decent attack, and I think Isak going actually helps Gordon in that Walter Made seems to link up the play a bit more and isn't a focal point, or brings more players in, allows Elanga and Gordon to get in behind. I think it'll probably help Gordon's output compared to Isak if we can continue to play and score goals. Like last night, scored 4 goals, Gordon got 2. If we can continue that kind of form in the Prem, and Gordon's also chipping in with assists, getting goals outside the penalties, and has penalties as well, I think at 7.4, I'm probably going to start considering him. But let's, I guess, just kind of wait and see.
Well, I think the hard part, right, and kind of getting into the fixtures for this game week is that the fact that this team doesn't have a lot of continuity right now because Gordon missed those 3 Premier League games, right? So he's playing a lot in the Champions League and kind of working through that, but he wasn't able to play with Voltemade and, the full complement of players that we normally have in our side. So that's what's tough. But we do have fours this week, 1.84 expected goals. Not bad, especially coming off that 4-goal performance just a few days ago. But I need your thoughts on United against Sunderland because they are expected for 2 goals and I'm expecting absolutely 0. Villa to get off their asses and score 2 goals against Burnley, which I think is going to be tough against that Burnley defense. And of course, Arsenal and City expected for plenty of goals in their games as well.
Yeah, I think Newcastle will go and score at least 2. I can't see a realm when Forest keep them down to 1 goal. And then again, I think it's going to be Voltemade and Gordon or someone else involved in it. Tonali actually has been pretty good for output, but you'd expect Voltemade to come in and do well. And I think you're right at 7.1 million, a good alternative to João Pedro. I think Whistler still doesn't even have a time frame for coming back. They said after international break, has a knee injury, not even trained on grass. So I think Voltemade is fine for the short term. And I think he'll still probably be preferred when Whistler is fit. They'll either play together or Voltemade will start. So I think that's fine. City is, great. If I think any assets you own, I think Brentford away is actually a really good fixture. People were even talking about maybe triple captaining Haaland because of the form he's in. Scored 2 against Burnley, scored 2 again last night. I do kind of get it. I'd probably just wait for like a Leeds at home fixture or Sunderland at home fixture or whenever's next within this first half of the season. I think you're right on Villa. Looks like they turned a corner a little bit, starting to score. If you have Watkins and Rodgers, fair play for still holding them. It's a great fixture to have them. United is an easy hold. You don't want to sell Bruno or Mbeumo this week. I did sell Mbeumo, so I know he's definitely going to score against Sunderland. Yeah, exactly. So Mbeumo's finally going to return. Bruno will score a penalty. I can see United getting a clean sheet here and getting a comfortable 3-0 win.
Okay.
Arsenal is a great fixture to own. We're talking about new manager bounce and it being a London fixture. I think this could be a little bit trickier than everyone's talking about. I still fancy Arsenal to, score at least. I think 2.56 is a little bit.
It seems like a lot. The clean sheet at 51% is more than warranted, but 2.56 is more than we've seen in a few weeks. Like City last week, I don't even think was at 2.56 in their fixture with Burnley when they absolutely destroyed them.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that comes to, before we wrap it up, my final question for you then is captaincy with 2.56 expected goals. Are you captaining that man on the right-hand side, or are you just not betting against the robot?
I got to be real, man. I'm not doing it this week. I love Gyökeres. I think he's been great, and he's been what Arsenal needed for like not just this season, but like the last 2 seasons, even before that. They needed a striker that could just go in and score goals, and that's exactly what he's doing for the team. I think they'll only continue to get better and better as time goes on. But I'm not betting against Haaland, man. That I should have triple captained him last week. I thought about it, didn't.
Yeah,
and
me too.
Kind of regretted it by the end of that 95th minute or whatever when he scored that second goal. It was just crazy. But I'm just captaining Haaland every week. I'm just thankful, Tom, that Salah is not biting me in the ass this season. Last season, I said I didn't want him, and he had a career season. This year, he's been dog shit. So thankfully for that, no Salah in the team. But to be honest, against Chelsea, I would not be shocked if he scored 2. Again, Chelsea's defense is terrible right now. They don't have any defenders. They're all getting red cards like they have nobody. I would not be shocked if Liverpool put up a big number on Chelsea this week.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I still have Salah in my team. I've gone Salah and Haaland, and it's quite nice owning him as a differential because the rest of my team's still doing well. So if Salah explodes and you've got Haaland as well, and people are transferring out Salah, I think he's to say Salah is a differential after last season is kind of crazy. I think he's the only 90-minute man for Liverpool, and I think Isak and Ekitike don't think they're going to play together, or Gakpo, not really sure how it's going to work. Seems like there's maybe some friction in terms of who number 1 is. And Isak doesn't quite look up to speed. Liverpool failed to score against Galatasaray. Yep. I just think Salah, if I was going to own anyone from Liverpool, it's going to be Salah.
It's got to be.
I think if either of Ekitike or Isak nail down that spot, or they start playing together, I think then we can have a conversation about them. But for this week, I probably wouldn't be transferring in any Liverpool assets.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Liverpool is a difficult situation to figure out. You bring in all those transfers. Wirtz not playing overly well either, and you have a bit of a disaster on their hands. But that's for Slot to figure out. They're still obviously top of the league and probably going to remain up there for as long as they continue to play games because they're so good. But yeah, I'm with you. It's Van Dijk and it's Salah. And that's the only FPL assets that I'm looking forward to owning from Liverpool. But with the fixture swing, we are back onto Arsenal now. Tom, do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, that felt pretty efficient. I was quite happy with that. It sounded pretty good.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe. And, of course, we'll be back after the break for our next Across the Pod. We'll see you later, and we're out. Peace.